So we're live. Luka Nation, welcome back to what I think is going to be a really, really special episode for a few reasons. We'll talk cards. We'll also get to pick the brain of someone that I've seen from afar. I respect what you've accomplished, Geoff. And I kind of want to hear a little bit about your history. So you guys listen to today's episode. It's going to be structured like this. I want to hear a little bit about Geoff, the entrepreneur, how he got started in this space, because this isn't his first venture. We'll talk sports cards for the bulk of the episode. And then we're going to finalize this thing with a little digital collectibles, NFTs, Vive, Top Shot, and how that all ties into kind of where we're heading. Geoff, what's cool about you, man, is first off, welcome to the show. I really appreciate you joining us.
Hey, I'm really excited to be here. You guys have done great. I can't believe how many episodes, like you guys have been just the grind and the hustle. I mean, you're approaching what, 600 episodes now? That's absolutely amazing. Incredible.
Thank you.
We like to hear ourselves talk.
It's like as a like that's one of the keys to content creation is consistency and being able to consistently put a lot out. And it is one of the hardest things because it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time. And you guys know that, obviously. And so to get to that type of episode count, I mean, that's an incredible number of hours you guys have put into it. And but you know, you've achieved great success. You guys are absolutely one of the most listened to, talked about podcasts out there.
Appreciate that. Look at that. That's it. End the episode there. We can only go downhill from there.
Clip it.
You can only go downhill.
Talking about consistency. I bet 95% of people don't know this, but Geoff, you started your first business in college, right? You went to UF, started in college, and you still run it. I mean, what, 352? Can you give people an idea? Because I think when you see someone who's been an entrepreneur for, 24 years, 25 years, there's something there. You're doing something right. Because a lot of entrepreneurship isn't even about winning. It's about not losing and staying in the game. And I'm curious, can you share a little bit about kind of your first entrepreneurial business before we get into cards?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you want to go real far back, like my exposure to entrepreneurship, I say started with sports cards. So, when I was crazy, like obsessed with sports cards when I was in elementary, middle school. And it was obviously junk wax era, 86 through 91, 92, those years, baseball, almost entirely baseball, a little bit of basketball. But unfortunately, I didn't pay attention to basketball until like 1990. I wish I had started paying attention to basketball back in 1986. I don't know why I wasn't. I was just paying attention to baseball cards. But the trading and the buying and the selling, and like my happiest moment of the month was when the new Beckett price guide would arrive in my mail and I could go reprice my whole collection and go trade with my friends the next day based on the updated values. That whole experience as a kid really, I'd say in many ways, kind of lit my entrepreneurial fire and made me want to be able to do that in a professional sense. And so, I actually later, I started to lose touch with cards as I got into high school, but that was right in the early days of the internet and PCs. And so I actually did business ventures in high school where I was actually flipping CD-ROMs. So CD-ROMs were like a big thing. And I was designing websites for businesses and I got to college and I continued to do that. I continued to build websites because it was something that I could do on the side. And this was like real early days. This was 97, but when I was doing this in college. So, businesses were just getting online for the first time.
That was a tough sale, right? Like businesses didn't even realize they needed websites in 97, 98, 99.
Yeah, but there was also a lot of hype building and businesses didn't know what the heck it was. So they also realized they needed people to help if they were going to do anything with it. So,
be honest, Geoff, 1998, 1999, you were going around telling people they needed to buy what you were selling because Y2K was going to kill their computers.
There you go.
And that's it. The Millennium, Y2K, just buy what I'm selling. That's it. Just buy it. Nah, I'm just playing. Listen, it's funny. Those websites you were building, they probably look like some of the artwork from the NFTs that are really popping off right now.
Oh, yeah, man. That's true.
Little MS-DOS.
I should sell like NFTs. They're right on the level with CryptoPunks. Like the quality of artwork is right there with CryptoPunks.
It's funny how what was new then became old, and it makes it cycle back. And I mean, I was in the same year, the same 86 to 92, you name it. I say the same thing. How did I not buy basketball? Nobody bought it though. It would
Yep.
sit on the shelves and get returned. Nobody bought basketball. That's pretty crazy. So websites.
Yeah,
When
websites.
When did you come back into cards? This is what
So-
Andrew calls his origin story, by the way. He didn't say it, but this is the Geoff Wilson. We're going to put a cape on you. We'll give you a Marvel card, and this is the Geoff Wilson origin story. I love it.
It's cool because there's a thread. Like we've done a lot of episodes. I listened to a lot of successful business people. Many of them trace back their first days of trading baseball cards to where they are now in business. And even if they're not trading baseball cards now, they learned a lot: supply and demand, salesmanship, customer service, honoring your word. So I think it's helpful.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I totally agree. And that's why I'm so into getting my kids into it and getting other kids into it. You know, I tell you, this last couple of years, like as a dad, like some of my proudest moments and some of my best connections with my kids have now come over cards, going to card shows together. Like probably my most proud thing. So my two boys wanted to start their own YouTube channel about cards because, you know, they're into it and they, you know, are watching my channel. And so we started a YouTube channel for them probably about, I don't know, it was about 5 or 6 months ago, called Card Kids. And they're once a week, there's an episode of them either opening up a box or going to a card show or something like that. And my proudest moment is there was an episode a few weeks ago. We filmed it at the Tampa Card Show in December. And my 10-year-old went around the card show with his own, you know, box of cards and his own money. And he was buying and selling and trading. And it would literally have my camera guy follow him around for the morning. And he was buying it. And I had no contact with him whatsoever at all. He was 100% by himself on the show floor. And the kid is a shark, man. He was negotiating with dealers and getting great deals on stuff. And
I saw this video, by the way.
It
did help that he was wearing a T-shirt that said, "I'm Geoff Wilson's son, so be good." I mean, that helped the deals a little bit. I'm just playing. He didn't have that shirt on. No, but it's awesome. That's awesome stuff. I mean, you know, I don't have a camera following around, but Ian, my son, did exactly the same thing at the Hofstra show. And, you know, you walk out with like, you know, $3,000 in cash. You know, I mean, like, what the hell did he do here? You know, like, what is going on? Selling his stuff, trading his stuff, and all the like. So, I mean, it's just, it's fun. Right. And if you were doing this in the 80s, I don't know if you had a parent who did it with you or, you know, it was a friend thing or whatever it is. It's a cool connection. It's a cool thing to go back to.
Do kids care? Not care, I guess. When kids are doing that, are they naturally inclined to flipping or collecting, right? Or both? Like, do they have a PC and they're like, these are the cards I love. I want to, you know, take them to college and all that stuff. And other cards are to flip. How do kids look at that?
Yeah, so that's what my kids do. So, you know, they do both, right? So my son, my 10-year-old, he really loves patch cards for collecting. He thinks the patch cards are the coolest things. So he actually doesn't care what player it is. It will be player. He actually prefers the players that he's never heard of that are not in the league anymore because he can buy.
He's in the league. Goga Batadze.
He's about to go to Europe and dominate.
I mean, listen, it's smart, right? He's buying what people aren't buying. He probably pays a little bit less for it because it's not the hot card. And
you can find crazy RPAs for $5 of, you know, from national treasures from, you know, 7 years ago of guys who aren't in the league anymore. Nobody cares about, right? Yep. But he'll go through the boxes and find the coolest possible patch he can find, and that's his like, oh, look at this incredible patch I just found. College, like the college products, like college national treasures, like that's great for that. Like the bowl game patches on the football jerseys. Some guy drafted in the 6th round. Nobody knows who he is anymore, but it's an incredible patch.
Everyone knows Tim Tebow. Come on, you guys are UF guys.
Tim Tebow.
Do you have a Tim Tebow collection?
Oh, I got it. I got a sick Tim Tebow collection. I got a crazy Florida Gator collection. I've got, and I'm excited now that he's going to get his chance, but I've got I have to have the best Kyle Trask collection. I mean, there's no way anyone could have a better Kyle Trask collection than me. In fact, I think I got some of them sitting on my desk because I've got all of his one-on-ones. Like I've got all of his, you know, 1-of-1 gold vinyl from Optic. And I've got his, you know, a lot of them are over there in the room, but like, yeah, I got like, look at this Tebow. You want to talk about Tebow? This is his Bowman first 2019 Bowman, his first Bowman card, first Bowman prospect card. And this is the red refractor number to 1/5. I haven't seen the Superfractor yet. I'm looking for the Superfractor, but this is the next best card to the Superfractor. If you want a Tebow baseball card, that's the next best one. So yeah, I love, I love this stuff. I got all kinds of crazy, Gator cards and, all kinds of stuff.
So Andrew, on my end, my son's the exact opposite. He will take every card he has, sell it at a discount to open wax.
Yeah.
I'm going to find him one day in Vegas, a couple cocktail waitresses down, markers hanging out of his pocket. He's got the gambling gene. It's no good. But yes, if I let him, he would spend every dollar he had breaking wax.
Geoff, do you think so? The gambling gene, we talk about that, like kind of being the underlying thing that most of the community has. Do you believe in that? Do you think most people love the gambling, love the speculation?
Yeah, 100%. It's a huge part of it, right? I mean, it's a huge in two different ways. Part of it's ripping wax, which from an investment standpoint is an awful idea, horrible idea. I mean, the worst idea to you should never do that if you actually want to make money on cards. But guess what? I buy into breaks all the time. Even though I know I'm gonna lose my ass, most of the time, it's literally Saturday night entertainment for me sometimes. Like I will buy into a fun break, kind of a high-end break that Layden's doing or one of these other big guys is doing. And my sons will come with me and we'll turn on the TV, we'll put it on the big screen and we'll watch it. And it's literally like we're watching a movie. So I'm like, all right, well, I'm paying, $200 to be in this break. It's like I'm taking the family out to the movies and whatever. And then there's the other part of the gambling thing is the prospecting. It's the, are we going to find the hot rookie? Are his cards going to go up or down? Right. I mean, there's a gamble element to that as well. It's absolutely part of what fuels it.
I love it. I mean,
we're going to have like Oculus breaks are going to be super fascinating in the future, right? Like in the metaverse.
What? Why? Why do you need to see it in more 3D? Breakers have like 14 cameras on it now. You see the cards. I need a 3D. I need to be there, like walking around the room in like virtual reality. That's really what I need to do. No, I don't want to do that. I don't want to strap shit to my head, man. I'm sorry. You went on mute, but it is what it is. Listen, here's my question for you, Geoff, and take it wherever you want to go, right? Take it wherever you want to go. I can't believe I only have an hour with you. I mean, we could talk about 5,000 things, but here it is. I have a theory. It applies to NFTs. It applies to the hobby. It applies to Bitcoin. It applies to crypto. It applies to everything else. I call it my Bored Ape theory. Right? Andrew likes to talk about the Bored Ape NFTs, and we'll get to NFTs towards the end, but just stick with me here. And those people were early. People who bought in cheap, bought a few of them. Some of them sold, but the people who are in it now, for the vast majority of them, they just rode a wave up because they were early enough in, they invested cheap enough, and even if they made mistakes along the way and sold a couple of them too cheap or, bought one back in a little too expensive, for the most part, the folks who were in it early enough, they've only seen success. They've had no negativity in their community. They've had no infighting. They haven't had to overcome any hurdles. They haven't had to do anything. And those are the guys that out there on Twitter, they're giving all the advice. They're telling people, hold, don't sell, don't be paper-handed. I look what I did. I turned $12 into $14 million, and I'm on Elon Musk's next spaceship to Jupiter, and all this fun stuff, right? So I give that as my example, right? There are people in the hobby, right, who were the same, who were in this. Either they were lucky enough, and I'm going to use the word lucky, and you can tell me I'm wrong, right, whatever it is, who were lucky enough to either be collecting when no one else was and be buying cards, holding cards, you name it. They were lucky enough to live in the New England area while Tom Brady was playing and buy enough of his cards. It didn't make a difference which ones they bought. They were all making a killing. They were lucky enough, smart enough, to be in this a couple years ago. And if you were in this a couple years ago, you are doing better than you were, right? Your cards are up, even with riding out the whole deal, right? Nobody was talking about a year or two ago, be optimistic. There wasn't a big groundswell of be nice to each other, guys. Everyone was nice to each other because everyone was winning, right? And now we've gone through, I don't even want to call it let's call it a rough patch, right? It's not a bear market, but we're going through a correction. We're going through a time where you cannot throw a dart at the board and hit a triple bull every single time, right? You throw a dart at the board. What's the matter? You smiling at me? Yeah, are you laughing because it's like this is the longest question ever?
No, I got an alert on my phone. I sold my NFT for profit. No fucking lie.
Yeah, profit. See, that's what everybody's happy.
I love
Everybody's
profit
happy.
so much.
Everybody's happy when they're making money, but sometimes you sell for a loss and you're miserable for the rest of the day. So
I beat up my best friend. That's why I learned how to buy.
I bring it over to the hobby right there. There are a lot of people in now, people who, for the success of the hobby to be sustained, for us to all be in a position where we're talking to thousands of people, giving this advice, building up the hobby, making the pie bigger for everybody. There's a lot of people in it now who are hurt. There are a lot of people in it now who have lost money. There are a lot of people. Yep. And now we get a lot of let's be optimistic. Yourself included. Great video. We've talked about it. I think I talked favorably about it. You probably listened. I think I held it out there as a very good thing. We hear a lot more of that now because there's a lot more infighting. Yep. What do you think? Right? What do you think about that? What do you think about the next 6 months, next year? What do you think about how people are now coming in? What do you think about the infight? How do we stop it? What's your take on the whole deal and my theory about how it was easy and it's not so easy? And when it's not so easy, you get a little bit of this.
I think you are spot on. I mean, I think it's no coincidence that the level of negativity and drama in the hobby rose as prices were falling. The hobby was easy money for a couple of years, like 2018, 2019, especially 2019 and 2020 and on into early 2021. The hobby was easy money. You could pick pretty much any card and it was going to go up. And then, it really peaked out in February of 2021. And then we saw a pretty significant slide backwards, not with every type of card, but with the majority of cards, over the course of, most of the rest of 2021. And yeah, I think people got grumpy. I mean, there were people that lost money. There were people that, that were content creators, yourself excluded, but some content creators stopped posting as often because there just wasn't like the, what are going to be the hot cards this next month. Like when it became for a while, it became almost impossible to flip a card for profit. I mean, particularly like a base card, it became almost impossible. It didn't matter almost how good that player's performance was. The cards were still going down because of the overwhelming market pressure pushing things down. They might be going down less than another player's cards who's doing poorly, but they're still generally going down. And we saw that last year. I was amazed at the end of the baseball season. I looked at all of the price changes of all of the baseball cards throughout the course of the season. And there was only one player last baseball season whose cards were worth more at the end of the baseball season than the beginning of the baseball season. That one player, no surprise, was Shohei Ohtani. But even a guy like Vlad Guerrero Jr., who was close to winning the Triple Crown, late in the season, right? His cards actually went slightly down over the course of the season. I'm talking more his base cards, right? Mm-hmm. I'm sure some of his higher end stuff probably did well, but his base cards actually slightly went down over the course of the season, despite him almost winning the Triple Crown. So yes, people are grumpy because of that. And then, as you said, negativity starts to take hold, drama starts to take hold. People start to talk about that. That starts to dominate the news cycles. But it had become too much. It had become too much because the hobby is meant to, in many ways, be something that is a distraction from the real world, be something that we can all enjoy, that we can all participate in. I see, when I turn on cable news, I see too much negativity and drama every single day on there, and so that's fine. Don't bring that into the thing that I do to escape that. And so when it was dominating our news cycle in the hobby, the same way it dominates the regular news every day, I was just like, this is too much. It's too much.
It's supposed to be an escape, right? That's why we have this hobby. It's supposed to be an escape from that other crap.
Correct. And that's not to say that, it's important for people to understand that scams can happen and fake cards are a thing. And people do need to understand that so that they can protect themselves, but within limit. It doesn't need to be the central conversation every single day when you go on Instagram and that's all anyone is ever commenting on or liking or talking about. So hopefully we can get away from that. Without a doubt, if prices go back up, if the hobby has a good year this year, some of that will naturally work itself out, right? Because people will now become happier. And I will tell you, January was a really good month. There's a lot of different ways you can slice and dice and look at the data, but you know, overall, I would say that January was the best month for the hobby. But if you go all the way back to somewhere between April and June of last year, January, depending on if you want to look at vintage or modern or high end or low end, January was the best month since somewhere between April and June of last year. So basically, we saw a real uptick in January that we haven't seen for 6+ months. Now, whether that will continue, I don't know. There's a lot of outside factors, right? I mean, obviously NFTs have been just blazingly red hot in January as well. And you know, last year, the card market was really hot in January as well, but that didn't last. I think overall, I'm still pretty optimistic about this year because I think a lot of the flipping easy money is now kind of out. And now I think you've got more of a firm base. And I think you can kind of build on that firm base. So I'm optimistic about a year of steady price growth without the crazy spike and then the crazy drop. But, you know, it's a market. It's impossible to predict. And the market's becoming more and more complex every day as more and more people get into it and more people have knowledge about how it operates. The market's becoming smarter. And so it as a result of that, it's becoming a little more challenging to, you know, predict and project exactly what's going to happen.
Yep. So I love having somebody on like you who's been through cycles. Like it's one of the few things that I bring to the table. Andrew brings the looks, the brains, the brawn. I mean, he brings out all the great stuff. And one of the things I bring is that I actually
NBA
lived
knowledge.
through NBA knowledge. He watches the games, folks. He actually watches the games.
Well,
So
that's
anyway,
why all my Instagram arguments with people like Harden's so good. Harden's trash. If you watch him play, he's overweight and he can't do anything, and we don't want him in Philly.
well, you're the best. You don't have to support the business. I'm giving it to you, man. You are the best. Like I don't even know why I'm here. I mean, but
I've hated on every NBA player this week. I'm kind of embarrassed of
But
myself. Sorry,
the point is you've been through cycles, and here's the fun. I want to know: are you A, B, or C? Kind of in the middle of these two. So I've told people for a while that we had that, as you said, 2018, 19, 20 period, and that filled in this humongous level of people who came in. You want to call them Gary Vee disciples? Fair. You know, you want to call them people who are flippers? Fair. You want to people who chased easy money? Also fair. You just stated probably correctly, a lot of those flippers, a lot of those easy money people have left, right? A lot of them have, and I believe that to be true. Some have stayed, right? But what attracted that humongous amount of people to the hobby, what attracted the headlines, what attracted, you know, the mainstream coverage of this stuff was the fact that so many people were coming in, and what they were chasing were outsized returns. They were chasing 10x on cards, 20x on cards. They were chasing things like LeBron Chrome base rookie being $1,000 card, maybe less. I mean, I remember buying them for $1,000 and going from $1,000 to $40,000. Obviously, it's come back down, but a 20, 30, 40x, Kobe, you name it. Like there were a lot of those, and flippers like to chase that stuff. They like to chase those crazy returns. We've seen the market over time. You know, you're a chart guy. You make charts all the time. If you take a long enough chart, what you're going to see is a steady growth. Steady growth. And then, you know, 18, 19, 20, you're going to see one of these, like, you know, the chart that goes up and then kind of comes back down. And what we're expecting is probably that steady growth. It wasn't steady growth for the last 20 years that brought these people to the hobby. It wasn't, right? Otherwise, they would have all been here already. It was that boom, right? I don't think there's another boom coming. I think, you know, there might be like any other markets, up, down, but I think the sports card market overall, and again, you could be in this camp or not, is generally speaking a boring market. It's something that for the most part will have regular returns. You know, it goes up, but it is not a place, barring those little moments of time, year, 2 years, whatever it is, where you have these crazy spikes and the ability to arbitrage and make these crazy money. I don't think that comes back. I mean, I think the hobby is safe. I think it's great stuff. That to me, and this is the A, you tell me over there, we saw not just people come into the hobby, collectors come into the hobby, flippers come in. We saw a ton of business come into the hobby, a ton of money come into the hobby. So from fanatics on the high end to these auction houses, people say the big four, there's 20 auction houses, there was 20 something grading companies. I don't know how many of them are out there. You had people building businesses on the backs of other businesses. Mark's Cards now bankrupt, Starstock. I mean, all these other businesses that are not doing as well, you would think, as they were in the beginning. People getting funding, you name it. I think a lot of those companies and a lot of those people are in trouble. I do. I think that a lot of those companies that were here with money coming in 18, 19, and 20, if the market does what I think it's going to do, and it is steady up, I don't think it's going to crash or anything like that, but it's steady up over time, they're not going to be here because they're built on this. Wow, the card market is going to be this flip, this everybody in here betting and gambling and the whole deal. Do you see that, or are you in the camp of, well, Fanatics is here. They spent billions of dollars. They're going to grow the base, and it's going to be a different base. It's not going to be this flipper base that look at a 10x. It's going to be a base that's happy to be part of it. And the 1x, 2x, 1.5, the 20% returns that you would get in a stock market are going to be good enough for those guys. Where do you go, or are you a little combination of the two?
This is a really great question.
I have long questions.
Very
They're
long
good, but they're very long.
It is good. I took
Very
notes here
long.
during the question just so I could make sure I understood all the
Nice.
parts. I mean, you are an attorney,
Geoff,
so I
that's it.
understand how this
Just to
works.
kick off
I only have
episodes
one
with-
question for you in
This is
27 parts.
this is where you've got the witness on the stand, and you have basically
Oh.
given your entire
That's
closing
it.
argument
That's it.
simply through asking the witness one question.
Yeah.
And the witness is now so confused,
Yeah.
they don't even know what to respond with, but you've already given the jury your entire closing
That's right.
argument.
That
So
question
you're
will be
good. You're good.
objected to, and the objection will be sustained. It's leading. I mean, there's so many different problems with that question in the court. But I think you get where I'm going. Obviously,
get where
you
you're
take it
going.
wherever you want. But you know,
Yes.
I mean, your thoughts. I'm not going to ask you what inning it is, man. But it's a
I
legit
hate
question.
the inning analogy. I think the inning analogy is stupid. We can talk about that later. But yeah. So first of all, I agree that I do not think, at least in the near term, there will be another crazy spike. The spike is caused by the flood of flippers, as you said, and it's caused by flippers selling to other flippers, right? So what happened, especially as we look back, in January and February of last year, was that rush for easy money. It was that fear of missing out. It was all of these flippers going, oh my gosh, I can turn this card around and make 10 times, what I'm making on it today. A few months from now, flippers were selling to flippers. It wasn't flippers selling to collectors. It was flippers selling to flippers. The problem is that when you have flippers selling to flippers, a crash is inevitably coming because everybody's in it just to try to make the buck. And then all of a sudden you peak out where the flippers realize, wait a minute, there's no longer another flipper who's willing to pay more for this. So those flippers who bought it at the peak of the market are turning around looking, who do I give this to? Nobody wants it. So all of a sudden they get panicked and they'll give it to the next person down. And then that person gives it to the next person down, and that person sells it because they're all now trying to suddenly get out. And that's the behavior you saw in March and April and May and June as people are just selling cards and trying to get out, and you're seeing the prices drop as quickly as they went up. Finally, it got to a point where things started to stable out because you had enough collectors saying, well, that's a reasonable price for that card. It wasn't reasonable when the LeBron Topps Chrome was at $40K, but 15K in PSA 10, maybe that's more believable. So we can start to play in the market a little bit more again at that price point, right? And so that's the first thought. When heat starts to build in the market again, I do not think you're going to see as many people do that flipper selling to flipper behavior because a lot of those people got burnt last time and they are going to not flood back in and want to do it again. I will say, I do think a lot of those people are in the NFT market right now, flipping all these NFT projects. And I do think this same thing is going to happen into a lot of these NFT projects. I'm a big believer in NFTs, and don't get me wrong, we'll talk about that later. Like I'm a big believer. I own NFTs, but I do think you have to be real careful in the NFT market right now because a lot of that hype and speculation is immediately right there, just like it was in the sports card market last January. I do think, though, that over the long run, I do think that Fanatics placing as big of a bet as they have placed, I'm very, very bullish about that. I do think they're going to be successful at pulling more people into the market that have not been collectors in the past because of their advertising reach, because of their marketing reach, and because of their association with the teams in the leagues. The fact that the leagues are now involved in this venture, I think you're going to see, I think when you're watching Sunday Night Football 5 years from now and they introduce the starting lineup of the teams on Sunday Night Football, they're going to show their football card. And that's how they're going to introduce the starting lineup, right? I think you're going to see integration like that. And then that's going to just drive a lot more interest. So I'm excited about in the long run. Whether we, go through more peaks and valleys, I'm sure we will. But I do think, as you said, I do expect this year to be more steady growth, not the big spike. And honestly, that's healthier. Like, that's what I want. Like, steady growth is healthy for the market. It's healthy for all of us. It's not the spike, and then the rapid fall is not healthy, and it burns a lot of people. So I hope steady growth happens. I do agree that there were a lot of companies that were formed at the, based upon economics around the spike. I do think a lot of them have seen revenue drop. We saw our revenue at Sports Card Investor. Our revenue was off the friggin' charts the first quarter of last year. We were doing so much revenue that it was eye-popping, the numbers that we were doing as an organization, people signing up for market movers, people, using our Sports Card Investor app, doing, all that stuff. It was nuts. And it dropped off. It dropped off pretty substantially as the year went on. January, this, last month was a great month for us again. And all of a sudden we added a bunch of people to market movers and our Sports Card Investor app and all that kind of stuff. So, but growth is like, I would like to see that steady growth this year, right? And for my own business as well, because it's easier to plan around. I can plan out my P&L better for the year if I can assume, hey, this is I'm going to see 3%, 5% month over month growth, instead of last year where it was like first quarter is going to triple and then second quarter is going to drop into the dumps.
And if you're a young entrepreneur, you think that first quarter triple, you kind of like extrapolate it out and you overhire. I think a lot of I'm a pure capitalist, and I do like when businesses go under. I think better businesses start. I am a believer of that. So like a lot of these business, in my opinion, Cage, that you were mentioning, were started by flippers, right? They were chasing those easy profits. And if you look at their behavior, what do flippers do? They jump from one thing to another thing to another thing to another thing, versus true businessmen stay in the game for 20 years, and they ride out those winters so that they can capitalize on the spring and summer when that does come around. Geoff, what do you?
I mean, like literally, Starstock's entire business model, was built around flipping, and they changed, they modified it over time and got into breaking and other things. But like I was part of early conversations with Starstock about potentially investing in the company before they got anywhere close to even launching. And I liked the business model because I was like, okay, this is a really unique solution for flippers. I didn't invest only because I thought their valuation was way too high. That was my personal opinion. I have friends who invested in it. I looked at it and I was like, it was a little bit of a Silicon Valley valuation, in my opinion. So I didn't invest, but others I saw did. And for a little while, it looked like, wow, there was a period where I was like, man, I should have invested in that. It's starting to really build. But
I missed on that LeBron Tops Chrome, and then it ended up being Bobo.
Correct.
How, if you're an investor in Starstock and if you're a customer of Starstock, how do you feel and how do you make sense of what has happened with that business, right? So they opened as a raw card marketplace, ingested all these cards. People sent them their cards and trusted them. New business, customers trusted them. Took 2 months to log them in. And now that they're logged in, many of our customers message us. They say, we feel our cards are being held hostage as this company has now pivoted to slabbed cards. And now they're, I believe, into NFTs, which almost feels ludicrous to say something like that. What would you say as an investor of that company, as a customer?
He didn't invest. He didn't invest. Another good call by Geoff, I guess.
I got lucky on that one because I would have put money in it if their valuation was lower. But so I got a little lucky on that one. That's a great question. And look, I know the founders of Starstock, they're good guys. They've got good intentions. And I think they're obviously trying to figure it out. The reason why they're pivoting into all of these areas is because they have a lot of investors, they are trying to find something that's going to work sustainably for them to be able to take care of the people who have backed it and put money into it. Right. So as an investor, I appreciate the fact that they're trying to, kind of go down that path. But as a consumer, or a customer or someone looking at it from the outside, it's a lot of pivots. It's a lot of pivots. And to be, if they didn't have the burden of the existing investors and all that kind of stuff, if I were a bootstrapped entrepreneur who was trying the model of what they're trying, some of these pivots are so different from one another. I would have killed the business off and then started something new. I would have said, okay, my vision for Starstock, this, ability to flip cards and raw card flipping, the vision for Starstock did not work because of market conditions beyond my control. I misinterpreted, how this market was going to continue to operate long term. It was a swing and a miss. Shut it down and send everyone their cards back. That's what I would have done. And then I would have said, okay, that's a fail. That's a loss. What's my next at bat? If my next at bat is now going to be breaking, which they got into, great. That's a new thing, right? It's not associated with the old. It's a new thing. Everyone has been squared up previously. It's been shut down. Everyone's got their cards back. It's over. And now I'm in a breaking. Or if I'm going to NFTs, which they are now doing, I'm shutting down breaking, and that I'm sunsetting breaking. Didn't make any money with my breaking business. That's done. Everyone's squared up. Everyone's paid out. Everyone got their cards. I've sold my product off. It's over. And now I'm starting this NFT thing, right? It does seem like a very windy road to try to take the customers on this journey through what feels to be very different, disconnected business models. And maybe there's more synergy to their plan that I'm not understanding. I'm just looking at this from a very removed, 40,000 square foot view. They may have, but from my view, it just seems like a lot of pivots into somewhat disconnected areas. And it's probably, each of these probably needs to be its own separate venture.
So take it off Starstock for a sec, Geoff. I love where you just went. And go to, there are probably people listening saying, all right, this Geoff guy, he's nothing special. I mean, he's got a stunning head of hair. I mean, nobody says the word hello like he does. But who the hell is he? But if you just listen, guys, listen to the last 2 minutes and forget that we're talking about Starstock. Would you give that same advice to people with their collections? I mean, I love the baseball analogy because you're going to get up there and you're going to get a couple of hacks, right? And no baseball player bats 1,000.
Right.
The All-Stars are the one that bat, 300, right? Some even less than 300. You got Hall of Famers who successfully got hits, 2.8 times, So forget about Starstock for a second. Do you tell that to folks in the hobby now, folks who maybe were in the last 6 months or 12 months and they took their swing, and maybe they took their swing with modern base PSA 10s or they took their swing with, a prospect that didn't pan out. Do you tell them fresh start? You tell them that's the clean way to do it? You tell them, just like, that one, that strategy, that plan, that didn't work, move on to something else? Is it that kind of clean thing? Get your next at bat, start somewhere else? Is that kind of the advice you give to the folks now?
That's a great question. And I have not, as you're saying that and I'm thinking about it, I have not ever really drawn that analogy with my audience before and related it over to cards. However, I am a big believer in that your value of whatever you have, your past behavior and your past action has absolutely, that is all sunk cost. It is not relevant to where you are going. It doesn't matter that you bought these cards for some high amount and you've seen them shrink down, and that none of that matters. What matters is what are they worth today, and what do you think the market's going to do in the next 12 months? If today you were to start completely fresh and someone were to hand you, however much money you have in your collection value today and say, invest this in the absolute smartest way possible, would you buy the exact same collection you are currently holding on to? If the answer is no, which is probably no, especially if you have a lot of base cards, if the answer is no, then you should sell those cards immediately and you should rebalance your portfolio to get to whatever you think is the best thing you could possibly hold for the next 12 months. Because if you are holding on to something simply because of your previous investment in it, what you paid for it, what it used to be worth, none of that matters to the market. None of that matters. It's not relevant anymore.
Andrew's a big fan of take your losses where you can. Cut your losses. Cut your losses.
Rule number one.
Because
it trips up most most new people into any space, stocks, NFTs, cards, any investment, that's the thing they hold on to because it's like their first thing and they have their emotions and their ego and tied up in it and they don't want to cut that loss and say, I fucked up, I'm moving on.
Andrew didn't love this. We argued about it a little bit, but I think I moved him over because it really does dovetail with the cut your losses, cut your losses quickly, take it and move. And guys, listen to what Geoff just said, even though it's something you didn't think about. I think that might have been the best, 2 minutes so far of the episode. I'm sure we'll beat it a couple of times as we continue. But I say when you have liquid assets, and most of the cards were invested in liquid assets, when you wake up that morning and you have a liquid asset, if you do an analysis of that asset, right, and if you hang on to that asset that day, instead of selling that, you're basically agreeing to rebuy that. You have a set amount of capital. Your portfolio is worth $10,000. Exactly what Geoff just said. If you have $10,000, it's 10 $1,000 Zions, right? You could deploy that $10,000 into something else that day, something you think is a better investment, or you can hang on to your Zion. You should be hanging on to your Zion if you think the Zion is the best place to put that $10,000. You're basically agreeing to rebuy that Zion. If you don't think that's the best place to have that $10,000, get out and move it into something else. I think it's great advice, Geoff.
Yeah,
especially because you hadn't even thought about it. It's
Yeah.
something you hadn't. So I like it. I definitely do.
Yeah. Because that's what I say with startups all the time, right? I talk to startup owners, I talk to entrepreneurs, and they've got this long, harrowing journey. They're in year 3 or year 4, and this, that, and the other, and I'm like, kill it and start something new. Because what is the opportunity? You're holding on to this dream that you've now been at for 4 years, and it hasn't panned out, and there's all these things in the past. That's kind of why you're holding on to it. And maybe if this happens, or if this would have only happened differently 2 years ago, I would have been here. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah, but none of that matters. Here's where you are today. And what is the opportunity? What is your best use of your time today? Is it continuing with this thing for the next 2 years? Or is it going out and pursuing something new for the next 2 years? Because you have significant opportunity cost every single day, whether that's what you're doing with your life, what you're doing with your business. By choosing to do the same thing tomorrow, that's opportunity cost around whatever else you could have been doing tomorrow. That maybe would have returned, a better life.
What's interesting about that? I think most people do it because they have the sunk cost, right? They feel like I've already climbed this hill. I don't want to go all the way back. What I wish people would understand, I think when you're an entrepreneur for a long time, you realize this, it's not sunk cost because you still have the experience. And you're going to carry that experience into the next buying decision with cards or the next business you start, and you'll probably be better off with it.
Yes.
But it's like the sunk cost.
Sounds like a laser printer there, Geoff. What are you printing up? Some Honus Wagner cards? You're going to get PSA to slab them, like the miscut and jumbo size? Like, what are you doing on there?
That's empanada guy is coming.
So I have a question for you, Geoff. Sometimes when the episode, we don't prep for these things. Sometimes as I'm talking and as I'm listening and as we see where the episode's going, I put myself in the shoes of the listener, and I think, what would the listener be thinking right now? And listening to you, the last 10 minutes, I heard Starstock came to you to invest. Right, I've heard you talk about your theories from an entrepreneurial standpoint and how it would extrapolate that and take it over into cards. And we even heard, you say, well, when people come to me and, entrepreneurs, and they this, and this. What I'd be asking if I was sitting in my truck driving across country listening to Luka Nation or, at the gym or whatever it is, what I'd be asking right now is, who the hell is this guy? Who's Geoff Wilson? Because there are people sitting out there saying, I could do what he does. But I can get on there and make some graphs. I can go on there and make some picks and be right on cards. I mean, he even said it himself. Everybody was right for the last couple of years. He's built up this reputation, the whole 9 yards. But what we don't hear about you, and maybe this is good investigative journalism, or maybe tell me to F off, is why you? Why is Starstock coming to you to invest? Why are entrepreneurs coming to you to invest? Why do you have 140,000 subscribers on YouTube? What makes Geoff different than everybody else sitting out there who thinks they can do this? Because maybe we went to the origin story and you were building websites and, we had that stuff. But what is it about you that people are coming? You say the word hello, very nice. If I'm an entrepreneur, that's not enough to bring me to your doorstep and ask your advice. So tell me a little bit about that, because if I were listening, that's what I'd want to know.
So part of it is I've had a lot of at-bats, right? And, to draw that reference we were talking about earlier, the best entrepreneurs in the world, bat less than 500, right? I mean, It's easy to, look at a huge company like, Apple or Microsoft and say, gosh, everything they do is successful. But actually, no, they've both have had a tremendous number of failed products as well. And not every idea that Bill Gates or Steve Jobs came up with was successful. In fact, you could, look at a long list of things from like the Microsoft phone to the Zune, which was their pod competitor, and all this stuff over the years that have just were colossal failure after colossal failure after colossal failure at companies like those, right? And so no one can bat anywhere close to 1,000 when it comes to business. I started my company in college, and this is one of the reasons why I am a huge proponent of people starting businesses at a young age, because your first venture is probably not going to work. Your second venture may not work either. And your third one might not work either. But if you give yourself enough at bats, you're eventually going to get a hit and you might get a home run. And those at bats are a lot easier to take when you're, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. It's a lot harder to take those swings when you're 37 and you have, a wife and 2 kids and a mortgage payment and a car payment and a cushy corporate job with a nice benefits package and you've got stock options and all that stuff. Like, man, that it's hard to take swings when your swings are going to be walking away from all of that. So so anyway, yeah, I started my digital agency. Essentially, it's digital agency, software and marketing. I started that while I was in college. And by the time I graduated, I had 8 employees working for me doing websites. Now, granted, these were all part-time college students. It wasn't like a big operation. It wasn't big revenue, but we were a group of part-time college students who were designing very small, simple web pages, websites for small businesses. We weren't affected by the dot-com bubble because we weren't doing projects at that level. We were doing projects for the local coffee shop, getting their web presence set up, right, for the first time back in like, 1999, 2000, that kind of thing. That business continued to grow. And one thing that I always wanted to do was I wanted to push up market with it. So one of the things we tried hard with was every client we win should be bigger, better than the last, and we should charge them more than the last. We should constantly be tweaking our price up, constantly be tweaking the level of service that we're providing up, the level of client we're going after up. And we were able to do that. And we were very conscious about our own image. We were very conscious about investing in our own, because we were also still a bunch of young kids, but we put a lot of emphasis into our own quality of our own website and presentations and slide decks and all that kind of stuff so that we would look as polished as possible. We were outkicking our coverage in many ways, but we were pretty good at bringing in new clients and doing sales and all that kind of stuff. And so the agency grew and grew, and it still goes today. Now, today we work mainly with large companies, with enterprises and mid-sized companies and that type of thing. We do a lot of software development work and web development and growth consulting, digital marketing. But we're 60 people. We've got 3 offices in Atlanta and Tampa, and then Gainesville, Florida, still where I started it. But throughout that journey, I always wanted to be also like a startup guy. So I would, on the side from the digital agency, which is kind of the slow, steady business, I was doing different technology startups over the years. Actually, different startups of all types. I've done everything from, own and operate ice cream stores and coffee shops to one of probably the most fun outside of sports card investor that I had with a side venture was also my biggest single failure. I lost almost $1 million. And I created in 2007, I created this incredible virtual world for kids. Right now, you're hearing again about the metaverse and all that stuff. Well, I don't know why people act like the metaverse is new, because their Second Life existed back in like 2005, 2006. Second Life was huge back then. And for kids,
they did an Office episode on Second Life, I believe, right?
Yeah. And there was Club Penguin and Webkins for kids, which were huge hits with kids back then. So I loved sports. I teamed up with Steve Spurrier, Pete Carroll, Charlie Weiss, Phil Fulmer, and Barry Switzer, and we created a online virtual football world for kids. We created Pete Carroll's was called camppete.com. Steve Spurrier's was campspurrier.com. It was this incredible 3D virtual world game that you could go into as a kid. It was all oriented at kids who were kind of into youth sports. And you could go get coaching from the coach, like hours of recorded videos on like youth football techniques. And you could also play a ton of games. There were leaderboards. You could chat with people. It was really, really cool. And it was a complete and utter commercial failure. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But it was one of the most fun times I've ever had working on a project. One of the most money I've ever lost doing anything. And I learned so many lessons. And that was actually my last significant failure. The next business after that, and then the one after that, and then the one after that were on the side, all went on to become really successful. Had a big exit where one of them was bought by a Fortune 500 company. That was one that was actually my wife's company. She started the company. She ran the company. And I was helping her, kind of bring some of my knowledge and experience to the company to get it going and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, a lot of it, again, has been at bats, because my track record when I was, 5-10 years into my entrepreneurial career wasn't great. Like, I had definitely some significant failures in those early stages. But recently, my batting average has been a lot better because I learned all those lessons. I applied them forward. And so I got into sports cards. I got into sports cards again, I should say, because I had all that passion as a kid. But it was about 5 years ago now. So it hasn't been that long ago. And it was 4 or 5 years ago. And it happened because my son was down in visiting my mom, his grandmother, and they were at Target, and she saw football cards on the shelf and said, "Oh, your dad used to be crazy into these when he was a kid. Let me buy you a pack." And so she bought him a couple packs of Donruss, Donruss 17, I think, 2017 football. And so he came back to Atlanta and he's like, "Oh, look what, grandmother bought me, Vivi bought me." And I was like, whoa, like I honestly didn't even know they still made cards anymore. I had really, really lost touch. And so I opened the packs with him. I'm looking at the cards. I'm like, this is really cool. This is different. Why is this one shiny and this one's not? Why does this one have a green border? And here's the same card without a green border. I'm really confused by it, but thought it was kind of neat. So then, of course, I go pull out all my old cards, which I still have. I still have, probably 20,000 cards from my childhood. I pull them all out. I'm showing it to him. Of course, he finds this boring because he's like, who's Juan Gonzalez?
Yep.
Who's,
Yep.
who are these guys who you have these cards of, and so, but so I start, I'm like, all right, that's interesting. Maybe we should go buy some more cards. And so we go buy some more cards, and then all of a sudden it starts. And then I quickly realized, because I've had the investment experience, I've had the startup experience, I look at the whole thing and I said, oh my God, this is going to blow up again. I said, there are so many things that are so much better today than when we were doing this as a kid. You've got grading. You've got liquidity through online marketplaces like eBay. You've got really interesting card designs. You've got scarcity built into the product through serial numbered cards and short print cards. None of that existed back when I was collecting in the late 80s or the early 90s. And I said, I looked at all of it and I said, this could be another tidal wave. Like, when people start to realize this, it's going to be really cool. And so in the beginning of 2019, I said to my wife, I said, this is going to be my next entrepreneurial venture. I want to get into cards. She thought I was crazy. I'm like, I really think it's going to blow up. And I said, there's 2 paths I could go down. I said, one is I've got an idea right off the bat for a product that's badly needed. That's market movers. I said, the way that you have to look up the historical card values and what cards have done in the marketplace is awful. You got to go to eBay. You got to search by the card individually. You got to look at completed listings. If you want to do any type of charting or graphing, you got to copy that all out to a spreadsheet. The whole process is horrible, and it's not possible at scale. And if I want to be investing in cards, I need to do it quickly at scale. I need to look across thousands of cards and be able to see what they're all doing to see where there's opportunities in the market. versus, manually one by one doing this on eBay. And so, I said, I want to build this product. And I said, the other thing I could do is I could create content, because I also think there was, at that moment, there was a lack of good content, specifically on YouTube, where people were talking about, what cards were doing. And most of the YouTube content was just breakers, right? There weren't any polished shows where people were really talking about card values or anything of that nature. So we talked about it, and I said, you know what, let me do the content first, because if the content takes hold and if people subscribe to the content, then that validates the market. Building a product is going to be expensive. I'm going to have to hire software developers. I'm going to have to spend a lot of time committed to it. Starting a YouTube show is easier and less expensive. Let me start with the YouTube show. That will validate the market. If I get a bunch of subscribers, then I'll know that people care about thinking about cards in terms of dollars and cents, and they're going to want to see graphs, and they're going to want to see charts. And by the way, if I'm successful in building an audience, then I will also have a base of people who watch me, who I can then sell my product to when my product is released. So I started the show in July of 2019, and it grew pretty quickly. We got a lot of subscribers in the first few months. I was really excited about the growth of the show. And by October, I had enough subscribers and momentum that I said, okay, I got to build that product. This has been well validated. So worked really hard, October, November, December, January, on building Market Movers, launched it in February of 2020, and got a bunch of, paid subscribers to that off the bat, and then have continued to grow Market Movers, have continued to grow, the channel, have come out with other products like the Sports Card Investor app, and now our new Hits app, which just recently came out in the App Store. But I've continuously taken a lot of the money that the products have thrown off, and I have reinvested it both into the products as well as into the content. And if you go back and watch our show, especially on YouTube over the last couple of years, the production quality has gotten way better. And that's because I've invested in better equipment, but more importantly, I've hired people who know what they're doing. I've got three full-time videographers now on staff. And so, that's like it, and they do the editing, they do the camera, they run the studio, all that kind of stuff. And I got a ton of different content people. My total content team, I've got, social media, I've got writers, the website, sportscardinvestor.com. We're doing new articles on that every single day. So, we've got a large content team, email, etc. And because we're continuously reinvesting, try to make it better, try to make it better, try to make it better. And on the product side as well, try to improve the products, because we want to continue to try to lead the market in both of those areas.
I never heard the story. I'm glad I asked. It's awesome. Oh, because it's easy to sit there and say, why aren't companies coming to me to invest, right? But you've done this, right? You've lived it. I love the take your swings, and I love doing it. This was my first swing at anything entrepreneurial, a podcast. And lucky for me, Andrew bought a tee, so I was hitting off a tee. He's the tee. Made it very easy for me. He made it very easy.
But you have the natural talent for it. I'm surprised. When America first started, 90% of people were entrepreneurs and 10% of people worked for someone else. Now it's the reverse. And I think it's such a weird system. Like, people go to college to go work for someone else instead of living their dreams. It makes no sense to me with the opportunities this country has. Other countries fight for freedom. I want to talk about the Hits app, but I also want to, you get a lot of pushback, Geoff. And I think it's partially because a lot of people from the hobby want it to stay a hobby. They don't love businesses coming in and, selling to us and all that stuff. Do you have any thoughts on that? I guess it just makes sense, but any thoughts on, why you get the pushback you get?
Yeah, I get a lot of pushback, right? So first of all, there's a lot of people who say, I'm in it just for the money, right? I'm not a collector. I'm in it just for the money. I'm just an investor. I'm not a collector. I've got strong feelings about a couple different elements here. So first of all, I'm not a collector, I'm just an investor, that is completely dumb. And anyone who says that you cannot be both a collector and investor at the same time, that's insane. I am proof that you can be a collector and investor at the same time. Like, there are cards that I buy simply because I think those cards are good investments and that they're going to go up in value. And then there are cards that I buy simply because I love the player and I want to own that card and I will never sell it. And by the way, I showed I showed a very valuable Tim Tebow card earlier. I have no like that card is not going up in value. That is not some card that I invested in because I want to sell it. All my Kyle Trask cards, it's great that he might get a chance as Tampa's quarterback, but I'm not going to sell any of my Kyle Trask cards. They're never for sale. I got these one of ones, not because I thought I wanted to flip them, but I got these one of ones because I'm a huge Florida Gator fan and a Florida Gator grad and saw Kyle Trask play a bunch of times and wanted to own the best collection of his. So you can be a collector and an investor without a doubt. The I'm in it for the money thing. Yeah, here's a newsflash. I'm in it for the money. It's a business. And guess what? The fact that I am actually motivated by the money has allowed me to reinvest in producing better and better quality content and producing better and better products and to bring new innovative products into the sports card space. I am totally in it for the money. It has allowed me to hire an incredible staff of people. I now have more than 25 full-time people who work for me who get to work in sports cards every single day. If I was not in it for the money, I would have none of those people. If I was not in it for the money, my content would look like it looked like on day one. If I was not in it for the money, all the products like Market Movers and the Sports Card Investor app that hundreds of thousands of people use to look up card prices and enjoy the hobby, those products would not exist. So it doesn't make any sense to me. If Dr. Beckett wasn't in it for the hobby, he never would, or wasn't in it for the money, I should say, he would have never created the first price guide. He never would have built Beckett. Nat Turner would have never bought PSA. Of course, we're all in it for the money to a degree, but that doesn't mean that we also can't love the medium, that we can't respect the hobby, that we can't want to be collectors and want to enjoy the hobby at the same time. I love this hobby. It's fabulous. I get such a rush of excitement getting to go to a card show. I love it. I love interacting with the dealers. I'm so excited every time I walk into a card show floor just to see what I'm going to see that day. What crazy, interesting stuff am I going to see today that I have never seen before? I was totally geeked out when I got to go to the Sport Card Expo in Toronto a couple of months ago, because I really hadn't spent much time around hockey cards. I didn't know hockey cards very well. And I was excited to immerse myself in hockey cards and just see what they were like and to experience hockey card culture. And I was able to do that. And it was a fantastic, wonderful experience. And so, be in it for the money, but enjoy the medium, enjoy the hobby, enjoy it. And it will help you and others enjoy it more.
My generation, or maybe this is me, I come from I love social entrepreneurship, right? I love businesses that make profit and give back.
Yeah.
Curious where you stand with that, because we just in January of this year we signed a partnership with SGC, and one of the things that we asked when we were kind of at the bargaining table was, all right, we thank you, we appreciate getting paid, we love the money, like you just said, but can you do something for our audience? And what they did was they threw in 50 free grading submissions every month that we could give back to our audience. And that's a way that I believe is win-win-win. SGC wins, they get to kind of leverage our brand and our voice. We win, we get paid. Like you said, we can upgrade our audio quality, we could hire a content editor, a team, all that stuff. But our audience wins, right? They get free submissions and we can do fun stuff with that. They could grade cards, that might not be financially make sense to grade, but now they can. Win-win-win. I think the whole ecosystem benefits. One thing I've asked from businesses that have had success in the last 2 years is, if you have had that success, try to find ways to give back to your community, to your people, to pour back into them. Where do you stand on that?
I absolutely love it. And I think it's really important. And look, right, especially now in America with the Great Resignation, all that type of thing, with everyone going virtual, people have the opportunity to choose where they want to go work more than ever before. and they can choose to do things that inspire them. They can choose to do things that they love and enjoy. And so I think it's really important for any organization to have its why, to have its purpose, to have, and to have a way to give back and to touch those that are affected by the organization. I think it's very, very important. I think it's important for the organization. I think it's really important for the employees of the organization to feel that. So I love your example there, with SGC. We're trying to do those same things at Sports Card Investor. We just, in my video that I did the other day about the negativity of the negativity and drama in the hobby, at the end of the video, I said, look, one of my big missions is to get more kids into the hobby. And I said, I'm going to do something right now. Any kid who emails, I gave out an email address. Any kid who emails, I'm going to send you a free repack, which my team at Sports Card Investor is putting together. We're all donating our own cards. These are all 100% our own cards, or cards that we've gotten from box breaks that we've done, that type of thing. A lot of my own personal collection is going into it as well. And I said, we're going to create all these repacks, and I'm going to send a repack to every kid who emails. I'm going to send you a repack in the mail for free. Well, I just checked the email box this morning. I've got over 500 kids that have emailed so far since that video. So it was a little more than I was anticipating. We're gonna be busy at work this next couple of weeks, packing up all these repacks and mailing them out. But we're gonna do that with a smile on our face, and we are gonna do that with pride, because that is awesome. I want, hopefully we get 1,000 kids to email in, because that's awesome. Every single moment we're sending one of those out in the mail is going to be a moment that we're going to say, that's great. This is another kid who's going to get an experience with the hobby. They're going to get something in the mail. They're going to open it. It's going to be fun. It's going to be surprising. There's some good cards in some of these. They're going to have fun with this. We're going to be part of their fun. And hopefully,
and you get to get rid of 500 Todd Van Poppels, Greg
there
Jeffries,
you go.
and
All
Steve
my base prism. All my base prism. There we go. Right. So, it's that type of thing, right? I think is really, really important for companies to be able to do.
If our audience can support, let's say they have cards out there that probably not going to grade, or they want to give away, because we get that quite a bit. What should they do if they're on the other side and would be happy to support and send some cards your way?
Yeah, sure. I mean, yes, we would welcome that, because we're with the response that we've gotten to the card kids, this thing, we're going to need some more cards. We got more response than I thought we would.
I have an idea.
Starstock steps up and sends all the cards to Geoff. Their customer service is.
They could partner on this, because everybody who has their cards in it, myself included, I have hundreds of cards. I literally would check a box, sign whatever it is, and say, give every one of those cards, send them to Geoff for the and I know I'm not the only one. So they should do that.
That's a cool idea. That's a cool idea. I like that.
So you mean your $500 worth of cards, you don't want them sent back to you for $400?
Well, I mean, it makes it easy. They can now ship in bulk.
You're making $100.
They can ship in bulk to Geoff instead. And I mean, a lot of those cards I sent them in, they're not even sellable. They're not liquid on there. I mean, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who would click a box, 50, 100 cards, send them to Geoff. It's a good cause, So I think there's definitely something there.
Make that happen. Starstock, you're listening. We love you guys. And
I like the idea. I really do like the idea, because I think this idea of hey, let's do repacks for kids. I mean, I think we're going to do more and more of that kind of stuff. And so I think that's a really cool idea.
Geoff, talk to us about your Hits app.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about that. It's a new app that we launched in December, and then we did a big update of it a couple of weeks ago. So what we've done is we partnered with the biggest breakers in the sports card business, companies like Layden and Mojo Break and Jaspys, Real Breaks, and a lot of the other really premier ones. And we have gone back into their back catalogs of breaks over the last several years, and we've pulled out all of their biggest hits. So the moments when they pulled those cards out that are now worth tens of thousands of dollars. And we've edited the video clip of each of those moments into, kind of short, like 30-second clips, so you can relive the moment. And we put them all into the Hits app. And the Hits app's a fun, it feels like a TikTok stream. You're swiping up through the app and seeing all of these different hits. And you can even filter by sport. You can filter by player. You can filter by breaker. And we are then also adding in new hits every single day. So if a big card was pulled last night, it should be in the Hits app in a day or two after it's pulled. So if you're just curious, like obviously Flawless Basketball came out recently and has been, people, the big hits coming out of that. So a lot of the big hits that came out of that product are already in our app. So you can go see a lot of the biggest Flawless Basketball moments if you're curious to see the logo man of Anthony Edwards pulled, for example. You can go see that in the Hits app. And then the next element of it is that we're then taking every single moment in the app, all of these all-time great pulls, and we are minting each of these moments as a one-of-one NFT. We're selling them on OpenSea. And for the people who buy the NFTs, it's going to be a little bit of a bragging rights, because if you buy the NFT on OpenSea, it will be in your collection in the Hits app. And then whenever anybody from then on out forever in the future sees that moment in the Hits app, your name will be listed above the moment as the NFT owner, the exclusive NFT owner of that moment. And you can link to a website or an Instagram or a online store or whatever if you want to as well. So it's a little bit of an advertising opportunity. I think it's going to be a really cool thing. So the NFT drop, the first 200 one-of-one moments are going for sale on OpenSea next Tuesday night at 9 p.m. So we're really excited for that.
And if
So
you
Geoff,
don't
you like
digital
my
collectibles,
good. You know, do
it's
it.
not for you.
But here's my question. You like my lengthy, Thornton Mellon. I only have one question for you, but it's in 27 parts, cross-examination on the stand method. One of the other things lawyers like to do, it's called take the sting out. When you know that you have something bad, you put your witness on the stand, they're going to be cross-examined on it, right? You try to do it on direct. You try to just ask it right here before somebody can take their shots at you. And you lessen the blow. You take the sting out, right? My question, why? You have to know. You have to know that the hobby, for right reasons, wrong reasons, no reasons at all, are going to give you shit about dipping your toe into the NFT pool, right? And we've now talked about your entrepreneurial spirit. We've talked about the swings you've taken. We talked about your track record, which is probably better than most. Why do it? Is it a sense of, you owe this to your community? You've seen an opportunity here? Is it something you think is fun? Just why dip into this and why now?
Yeah. So, and they already have taken shots. I did a video on my YouTube, the Sports Card Investor YouTube a couple Sundays ago about the Hits app and the NFT sale. And the comments were not very friendly. There were a lot of people who said, this is ridiculous. This is going to fail. NFTs are the devil. Why are you cheating on sports cards? I knew you were in it just for the money, because now you're doing NFT drops, all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, look, I believe whether you like it or not, it's fine if you don't have any interest in NFTs. That's fine. Then this project's not for you, and that's okay. I'm sure there's certain restaurants you aren't into and you don't go to those restaurants. That's okay. You don't have to be into everything. I'm sure, your favorite movie producer has probably created 30 movies and you probably really like 10 of them. And then there's probably 10 of them that you think are absolute trash and they're a totally different type of movie than you would ever watch. And why the hell did that guy create that movie? Just don't watch the movie. It's fine,
Geoff,
right?
I've never had Thai food. My ass just can't take it. But there are people who love it.
I'm not a fan of Thai food either. So there you go. So don't go to Thai food if you don't like Thai food. So
how would you know you don't like Thai food? If you
I didn't say I don't like it. I just said I know my own ass, and it's just not for me. So people love it, but it's not mine. I know you love Thai food. That's why I bring it up.
So I like, yeah, people are throwing hate, and like, I have always been I've always enjoyed seeing what's new and what's next and what people are doing. I like the NFT space. I think the NFT space has a lot of long-term utility. I think that I do think there is a bubble right now with some of these kind of art NFT projects, where they're minting 10,000 and everyone's trying to jump in on the whitelists and the Discords and, trying to ride up because there's a lot of similarities to the sports card market last January, where you got flippers selling to flippers. You don't have people that really care about that piece of art being in their digital collection for the long term because it means something to them. You instead have a lot of people who are buying that piece of art because they're excited for the floor to move up and double and then them to be able to sell that piece of art to another person who's also, by the way, probably a flipper. So eventually some of that stuff will fall back and crumble. But the NFT space overall has a lot of long-term viability once people figure it out more. The NFTs that have utility are the ones that I personally like the most, that I think are the most, sustainable. We're trying to give these hits NFTs, we're trying to give them some utility, because if you own a hits NFT, you are then going to be invited to be part of a private box break once a quarter with one of the top breakers. I'll be part of the box break as well. It's going to be an exclusive event just for hits NFT owners. We'll probably do a meetup at the National, like a party at the National for hits NFT owners. We're going to do different things like that to try to add real world utility to owning these hits NFTs, because I feel like it's important to do that and reward the people who, and just like you guys are doing with your NFT project, it's got all kinds of real world utility. That's what you guys are trying to do with it. So I do like those types of NFT projects, but there are people who don't like it, but I can assure, like, the one thing I will say is the people who feel like I am somehow like cheating on sports cards or moving past sports cards will forever be like a major, major love and passion of mine. But I also believe that digital collecting is going to play a large role in the future. Also, by the way, within the sports card hobby, if you're not paying attention to Panini blockchain and the growth of Panini blockchain over the last few months, it's growing. It's like increasing in popularity, and it's okay if it doesn't interest you and you don't like it and you're not the target audience for it, then stick to the physical cards. And that's totally fine. Physical cards are great and wonderful, but there's a whole audience for digital as well. And digital is going to be part of the hobby, and it will be a growing part of the hobby, because guess what? As we get older and, 10 or 20 years from now, there's the next, great podcast that somebody started, the next great YouTube channel. They're probably going to spend a lot more time talking about those digital card projects, than not. And so I just think we need to embrace it. We need to be aware of where it's going. That doesn't mean that we have to participate in it. Doesn't mean we have to like it, but it is part of the future. And participating in both does not mean you're cheating on one. It does not mean you're demeaning on one. Like, just because I'm buying NFTs does not in any way reduce my love for my collection. And I'm not selling off sports cards. NFTs. I'm not doing that.
What about if you, let's say, National 2021, you say, Andrew, you should really check out these Panini blockchain digital NFTs. And then you go and buy and mint World of Women that are now 10 ETH. Would that be considered cheating?
Wait, you mint 40 of them. You mint 40
of them. Is that cheating? Like, where do you...
I had a good National, not on cards, on NFTs. But I mean, listen,
I hit a Kawhi's blue circles. Thanks, dude.
so here you go. So, Geoff, you know what I compare it to? And listen, people will hate this, not like it. It is what it is, but to a certain degree. You just talked about how much fun you had in Toronto learning about hockey cards. It's not something that a lot of people collect. It's not something a lot of people love. As a matter of fact, some people hate hockey, right? Some people don't think it's a viable investment. But you enjoyed it because you're learning something new, and maybe now it's something you work in. Maybe you're going to give an Austin Matthews play, or maybe you're going to tell people why Lafreniere is the biggest bust in the last decade. Who knows, right? But it's the same thing, right? You have a lot of people who listen to you, and I think it would be silly to not at least explore this for them. Mm-hmm. And it's a symbiotic thing, and I don't know if you feel like this. I do. I have to say thank you to our audience. I'll thank your audience. Hopefully we get some of 140,000 subscribers on YouTube. Hell yeah, let's go. But when we first started, January of last year, we did Coffee with Cage. We don't do it as much anymore. We'll get back to it. But somebody asked me about Top Shot. They said, hey, what do you think of Top Shot? And I'm like, I have no clue what it is. I have no idea what it is. But by the time we do this next week, I will know everything about it. I promise. I don't like not giving you the answers. And I did. And there was a call I made to you, Andrew, that worked out, right? So it's the same kind of thing, right? You have an audience. I think you have a responsibility to let them know where the opportunities are, and the NFT space is one of those. Doesn't mean you're pushing it. Doesn't mean you're saying this is the place to be and sell all your cards and get into this. It's we say this word that puts people to sleep, diversification. That really is all it's about. And doing a little research in a new area that people are moving into. Nothing more, nothing less.
I totally agree. Just because you hear somebody talk about it doesn't mean that you have to go buy it. It just, I think it's good to talk about these things. And because I do think there's crossover with a hobby. I don't think it's a disconnected thing. It's not like I'm not like all of a sudden on Sports Card Investor telling people to go buy Doodles or Bored Apes or whatever the next, thing that's minting is. There is crossover. There's Panini Blockchain. There's Topps Digital. There's NBA Top Shot. They just came out with the NFL version of NBA Top Shot. There's So Rare, which is the soccer card equivalent, in a sense, right? Soccer digital cards. There's a lot of these projects, which
UFC. There's UFC one on Flow too.
Yeah, and they're all very relevant to the same audience, and maybe they're part of the hobby, whether you like it or not. They're part of the hobby, and maybe they're over there in the corner today. They're not going to be over there in the corner, 5 or 6 years.
Well, think about this, guys. One of the things that I've
have more of that floor space.
Well, if Geoff picks his NBA Rookie of the Year in the beginning of the season, a week or two in, he likes Chris Duarte or he likes Evan Mobley. You can't go out and buy the Prism card now. Right. You can't go out and buy it at all. Maybe like Suggs. He's from Florida. But you know what you can do if it becomes viable? The Panini Prism has been out for months. Duarte, Suggs, whoever it is, you could. That could be a feasible, viable way of investing in the Prism. It's blockchain. A lot of people don't like it, but as you said, it's been growing over the last couple of months. We'll see what Panini does with it. So far, I'm not so thrilled, but we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see
and look, I'm not endorsing Panini blockchain. I'm not super thrilled with it either. But yes, it's a growing thing. It's something that we should pay attention to, and it's something that will continue to evolve. And it'll be interesting to see what Fanatics does with it, because I'm sure NFT is part of Fanatics' plan.
I'm sure. So Tuesday's the drop for the 101s on the Hits. And
so download the Hits app. The app is free. You search for Hits Card Breaker in the App Store. It will bring the app up, and the app is a ton of fun. Even if you don't care about NFTs, the app is a ton of fun. There it is. Yeah, it's on the screen. Hits Card Breaker in the App Store. People are having fun with it. But then if you do like the NFT aspect, we're taking 200 moments from the app. And we're minting each as one of one NFTs, and they're going to drop on OpenSea next Tuesday night at 9 p.m. And, we'll see what happens. I think we'll see what happens. The market will decide. Is this interesting to people? Is this collectible? Is this valuable? The market will decide.
Love it.
Love it.
Geoff,
love it.
It's been a pleasure. I mean, hour 20 here. Like Cage said, he could talk to you for hours.
Listen, what can we twist Geoff's arm to do, though? We didn't get a hello from him. And I don't want a goodbye because, that implies we're never going to talk to him again. What could we get for a Luka Nation out of Geoff from that, that silky smooth, put Bruce Buffer and Michael Buffer to shame? What do you want him to say? Come on, put him on the spot a little bit. It's no fun if you can't get into the cage.
You're putting me on the spot by putting him on the spot.
We'll do a custom hello. Here you go. Here we go. Ready?
Yeah.
Hello, Luka Tigers and Bronze. Oh my nation.
There we go. I love it. There we go. We'll take it. That's awesome. Listen, you could sell that. You got to do cameos and all the fun stuff.
Better than I've ever done.
By the way,
he called me monotone yesterday. I'm kind of hurt by it.
The reason why I have the hello, just so you guys know the backstory on that, is if you go back and watch my first handful of Sports Card Investor episodes, I literally start the episode by saying, hello, and welcome to Sports Card Investor. That's how I started it in that exact voice. Hello, and welcome to Sports Card. And my wife watched a couple of these episodes, and she said to me, that is the most boring, awful start that you could possibly have to an episode. She's like, you're telling people in the first 10 seconds that you are boring and that episode is going to be boring. She's like, you gotta spice it up. So I basically just kept the same script. I was like, well, what am I going to say? I'm like, well, maybe, I was playing with saying different things. I'm like, well, maybe I'll just continue to say hello, Sports Card Investors, but I'll actually say it with more emphasis. And so if you watch these videos, there's actually a period where I'm like I'm like, hello, Sports Card Investors in the next one. And then the one after that, I'm like, hello, Sports Card. And so it's like every episode I get a little more animated with it.
So loud noises, Luka Nation. I don't know what to do. I'm not going to change mine, but Cage, you're going to do an intro from now on.
No, man, I like it. I like it, and I can't wait until they translate Geoff into multiple languages. It's going to be "Hola, investment postcards." It's going to be a lot of fun, man. It's going to be. Good
I like
stuff.
that. That's good. That's
He
good.
took 1 year of Spanish class, and he
We
knows how to say dumb
appreciate you.
stuff.
We appreciate you coming on, Geoff. Thank you very much.
This has been great, guys. Let's do this again sometime soon.